Hello everyone. Welcome to today's science lesson on heat transfer in nature. In this chapter, we will learn how heat moves from one place to another in our daily life and in nature. Look around this slide. We can see the sun, fire, water cycle, sea breeze, and mountains. All these are connected with heat transfer. The sun is the main source of heat and light on Earth. Heat always moves from a hotter place to a cooler place. For example, fire gives us warmth. The sun drives the water cycle. Sea breeze happens because land and water heat differently. And mountains become cooler at higher places. In this chapter, we will understand the three important methods of heat transfer: conduction, convection, radiation. We will also learn how heat affects weather, water movement, and our environment. So, let's explore the amazing ways heat moves around us in nature. Now let us understand an important question: what is heat? Heat is a form of energy that makes things warm. It helps us cook food, stay warm, and even supports life on Earth. One important rule about heat is: heat always flows from a hotter object to a colder object. For example, a hot cup of tea becomes cooler after some time. When we touch ice, heat moves from our hand to the ice. The sun is the main source of heat on Earth. The sun's heat drives weather, winds, and the water cycle. Look at some daily life examples shown here. The sun warming Earth. Fire giving warmth. Cooking food using heat. Heat is very important in our everyday life. Now let us understand the difference between temperature and heat. Temperature tells us how hot or cold an object is. But heat is the energy that flows because of temperature difference. Heat is used at home for cooking and ironing, in hospitals and healthcare, in industries and machines, in nature for weather and plant growth, in energy production like solar power. So remember, heat may be invisible, but it is very powerful. It moves from hot to cold and plays a very important role in our environment and daily life. Now let us look at some daily life examples where heat transfer happens around us. Heat is present everywhere in our surroundings. We use heat every day, often without even noticing it. The first example is cooking food. When we place a vessel on the stove, heat from the flame transfers to the vessel and then to the food. This heat cooks the food and makes it safe and tasty to eat. The next example is ironing clothes. An electric iron becomes hot and transfers heat to the clothes. This heat removes wrinkles and makes clothes smooth and neat. Another common example is boiling water. When water is heated, it starts boiling and changes into steam or water vapor. Heat changes the state of water from liquid to gas. We also dry clothes in sunlight. The sun gives heat energy, which causes water in wet clothes to evaporate. That is why clothes dry faster on sunny days. During winter, we feel warm near a fire. Heat from the fire travels to our body and keeps us warm and comfortable. These examples show that heat is always working around us and making life easier. Now an important question comes to our mind. How does heat travel from one place to another? Heat can move in different ways, and we will learn about them in the next topic. Heat can move from one place to another in three different ways: conduction, convection, radiation. Let us understand each one carefully. The first mode is conduction. Conduction is the transfer of heat through direct contact. It mainly occurs in solids. For example, when one end of a metal spoon or pan is heated, the heat travels through the metal to the other end. That is why the handle of a metal utensil can also become hot. The second mode is convection. Convection is the transfer of heat through the movement of liquids or gases. In boiling water, the water at the bottom gets heated first. This hot water becomes lighter and rises upward. Cooler water moves downward to take its place. This continuous movement of water transfers heat throughout the liquid. The third mode is radiation. Radiation is the transfer of heat without any medium. Heat can travel even through empty space. For example, heat from the sun reaches Earth through space. We also feel warmth from a fire even when we are sitting at some distance away. So, conduction needs direct contact, convection happens through moving liquids and gases, and radiation does not need any medium at all. One important point to remember is that heat always moves from a hotter object to a colder object. These three modes of heat transfer help us understand many natural processes and daily life activities around us. Now let us understand the first mode of heat transfer called conduction. Conduction is the transfer of heat from the hotter part to the colder part without movement of particles. In this process, heat moves through direct contact. Conduction mainly occurs in solids, especially in metals. This happens because the particles in solids are very closely packed together. When one end of a metal rod is heated, the particles near the hot end gain energy and start vibrating faster. These particles pass the heat energy to the nearby particles. In this way, heat travels from the hotter end to the colder end. One important thing to remember is that the particles themselves do not move from their positions. Only heat energy is transferred from one particle to another. Look at the example shown here. When one end of the metal rod is heated by a flame, heat slowly travels through the rod toward the cooler end. This shows conduction in action. We can see many examples of conduction in our daily life. A metal pan becomes hot when placed on a stove. A metal spoon left in hot tea or soup also becomes hot after some time. Heat from an electric iron transfers to clothes while ironing. Metal tongs used near fire also become hot because heat travels through the metal. Conduction needs a material or medium to transfer heat. Without any material, conduction cannot happen. Some materials allow heat to pass quickly. These are called good conductors of heat. Metals like iron, copper, and aluminium are good conductors. Some materials do not allow heat to pass easily. These are called poor conductors or insulators. Wood, plastic, and rubber are poor conductors. That is why cooking utensils are made of metals, but their handles are often made of plastic or wood to protect our hands from heat. So, conduction is the transfer of heat through direct contact, mainly in solids, where heat moves from the hotter part to the colder part without movement of particles. Now let us perform an interesting experiment to understand conduction of heat. For this activity, we need a metal strip, pins, wax, and a candle. First, fix 4 pins on the metal strip using wax at equal distances. Label the pins as I, 2, 3, and 4. Now fix the metal strip on a stand. After that, heat one end of the strip using a candle flame. As the metal strip becomes hot, heat starts traveling through the metal from the hotter end toward the colder end. Carefully observe what happens next. The pin nearest to the flame falls first. Then the second pin falls. After that, the third pin falls, and finally the fourth pin falls. Why does this happen? The wax holding the pins melts because heat travels through the metal strip. As the wax melts, the pins lose support and fall one by one. This experiment shows that heat travels through metal by conduction. It also proves that heat always moves from the hotter end to the colder end through the material. Metals are good conductors of heat, so heat can travel through them easily and quickly. This is why many cooking utensils are made of metals. Now let us understand the difference between conductors and insulators. Different materials transfer heat in different ways. Some materials allow heat to pass through them easily, while others do not. Materials that allow heat to pass quickly are called good conductors of heat. Examples of good conductors are iron, copper, aluminium, steel. These materials are mostly metals. Metals transfer heat quickly, which makes them useful in cooking utensils, electrical wires, tools, and machines. For example, aluminium and copper are commonly used in cookware because they help food cook faster and evenly. Now let us learn about poor conductors, also called insulators. Insulators are materials that do not allow heat to pass through them easily. Examples include wood, plastic, glass, air. These materials slow down the transfer of heat and help protect us from getting burned. That is why handles of cooking utensils are made of plastic or wood. Even when the metal pan becomes hot, the handle stays cooler and safe to hold. Air is also a poor conductor of heat. This is why air helps in keeping things warm or cool. Let us now understand the uses of conductors and insulators in daily life. Cooking utensils are made of metals because metals transfer heat quickly. This helps in cooking food faster and properly. On the other hand, handles are made of plastic or wood because they are poor conductors of heat. They do not get hot easily and protect our hands. So remember, good conductors transfer heat quickly, while insulators do not allow heat to pass easily. Both conductors and insulators are very useful in our daily life and help us use heat safely and effectively. Now let us understand why woolen clothes keep us warm during winter. In winter, the air around us is very cold. Our body continuously produces heat to keep us warm. Woolen clothes help in trapping this body heat and prevent it from escaping easily. The first important point is that wool traps air. Wool fibers have many tiny spaces between them, and these spaces hold air inside. The second point is that air is a poor conductor of heat. This means air does not allow heat to pass through easily. Because of the trapped air inside woolen clothes, the heat from our body cannot escape quickly into the cold surroundings. As a result, the warmth stays close to our body, and we feel warm and comfortable. Look at the comparison shown here. Without woolen clothes, body heat escapes into the cold air, so we feel cold. But when we wear woolen clothes, the trapped air keeps body heat inside, and we feel warm. Examples of woolen items include sweaters, caps and gloves, woolen socks, blankets. All these help us stay warm during winter. So remember, wool traps air, and air is a poor conductor of heat. That is why woolen clothes keep us warm in cold weather. Now let us understand how heat transfer affects the design of houses. Houses are designed in a special way to keep us warm in winter and cool in summer. This is done by reducing unwanted heat transfer. In cold areas, houses are often made using materials like wood and mud. These materials are poor conductors of heat. They do not allow heat to pass through easily, so the warmth inside the house stays trapped for a longer time. Another important feature is the use of hollow bricks. Hollow bricks have empty spaces inside them. These spaces trap air. Air is a poor conductor of heat. When air gets trapped, it acts as an insulator and reduces heat transfer. Because of this trapped air, less heat escapes from inside the house, and the house remains warm and comfortable during winter. Look at the diagram shown here. Cold air remains outside, while warm air stays inside the house because trapped air reduces heat transfer. There are also other smart features used in houses built in cold regions. Small windows and thick curtains help keep cold air outside and warmth inside. Sloping roofs allow snow and rain to slide off easily and also help reduce heat loss. Carpets and rugs on floors keep our feet warm by reducing direct contact with the cold floor. Tight doors and windows prevent cold air from entering the house. All these features help make houses more comfortable in cold weather. So remember, materials that trap air and are poor conductors of heat help reduce heat transfer and keep homes warm and comfortable. Now let us learn about the second mode of heat transfer called convection. Convection is the transfer of heat by the movement of particles. This method of heat transfer occurs mainly in liquids and gases. In convection, warm particles rise upward and cooler particles move downward. This creates a circular movement called a convection current. Let us first understand convection in liquids. When water in a vessel is heated from below, the water at the bottom becomes hot first. As it gets heated, it becomes lighter and rises upward. At the same time, the cooler and heavier water from the top sinks downward to take its place. This continuous movement of water helps heat spread throughout the liquid. Now let us understand convection in gases. Air near a heater becomes warm first. Warm air becomes lighter, so it rises upward and moves away. Cooler air from other parts of the room comes down to take its place. This creates a continuous circulation of air and spreads heat throughout the room. Convection is very important because it helps in distributing heat evenly in liquids and gases. We can observe convection in many daily life situations, such as boiling water, room heaters, sea breeze and land breeze, smoke rising upward. So remember, in convection, hot particles rise up and cool particles sink down, creating a circular movement that transfers heat in liquids and gases. Now let us understand convection with a simple and interesting activity. Convection is the transfer of heat by the movement of particles. It mainly occurs in liquids and gases. Look at the vessel of water shown here. When water is heated, the water at the bottom becomes hot first. This hot water becomes lighter and rises upward. At the same time, cooler and heavier water sinks downward. This continuous movement creates convection currents and helps heat spread throughout the liquid. Now let us look at the paper cup activity. First, place a lighted candle on a table. Then place a paper cup above the candle. After some time, the paper cup rises upward. Why does this happen? The air near the flame becomes hot. Hot air expands and becomes lighter. Because it is lighter, the hot air rises upward and pushes the paper cup upward. This activity shows that hot air rises and cool air sinks down. This movement of air is called convection. Convection plays an important role in heating and cooling in nature and in our daily life. We can observe convection in boiling water, room heating, sea breeze and land breeze, smoke rising upward. So remember, hot air rises and cool air sinks. This circulation of air or liquid is called convection. Now let us understand why smoke rises upward. Smoke contains hot gases. When something burns, the air around it becomes hot. Hot air expands and becomes lighter than the surrounding cool air. Because it is lighter, the hot air rises upward. The smoke moves upward along with this hot air. That is why we see smoke rising from fire, candles, or incense sticks. A common real-life example is the smoke from an incense stick. The smoke always moves upward because it is carried by hot air. Now let us understand how this happens in convection. When water in a vessel is heated, the particles at the bottom gain heat energy first. These particles move faster and spread apart. As a result, the hot water becomes lighter and rises upward. At the same time, the cooler and heavier water from above sinks downward to take its place. This continuous movement of hot and cool particles creates convection currents. The same process happens in air as well. Hot air rises and cool air sinks down. This circulation of air is called convection. Convection helps in spreading heat in liquids and gases and plays an important role in many natural processes around us. Now let us understand how land and water heat differently. When the sun shines on earth, both land and water receive heat energy. But land and water do not heat up at the same rate. Land or soil heats up quickly during the daytime. It also cools down quickly at night. Water, on the other hand, heats up slowly and also cools down slowly. This difference happens because water can store heat for a longer time, while land changes temperature more quickly. Look at the observation shown here. If equal amounts of soil and water are kept in sunlight, soil becomes hot faster. Water takes more time to become hot. After sunset, soil cools quickly, but water remains warm for a longer time. This shows that water changes temperature slowly. Because of this property, places near seas, lakes, and rivers usually have moderate climates. They are not extremely hot in summer or extremely cold in winter. For example, coastal areas remain cooler during summer and warmer during winter compared to inland areas. Large water bodies help control temperature because they heat and cool slowly. This difference between heating and cooling of land and water also helps create sea breeze and land breeze, which we will learn next. So remember, land heats and cools quickly, while water heats and cools slowly. Let us understand sea breeze and land breeze, which are caused by convection. During the daytime, land heats up faster than the sea. The air above the land becomes hot first. Hot air is lighter, so it rises upward. As this warm air rises, cool air from the sea moves toward the land to take its place. This movement of cool air from the sea toward the land is called sea breeze. Sea breeze makes coastal areas feel cool and pleasant during the day. Now let us see what happens at night. At night, land cools down faster than the sea. But the sea remains warmer for a longer time. The air above the sea becomes warm and rises upward. Now cooler air from the land moves toward the sea to replace the warm air. This movement of cool air from the land toward the sea is called land breeze. So, sea breeze blows during the daytime, while land breeze blows at night. These breezes are excellent examples of convection in nature because they happen due to the movement of warm and cool air. They also help keep coastal areas pleasant and comfortable. Radiation is the transfer of heat without any medium. This means heat can travel even through empty space. Unlike conduction and convection, radiation does not need solids, liquids, or gases to transfer heat. The best example of radiation is the sun. Heat from the sun travels through space and reaches the earth. Even though there is no air in space, we still receive heat and light from the sun through radiation. Another example is feeling warmth near a fire. When we sit close to a fire, We feel warm even without touching it. The heat reaches our body through radiation. Hot objects also lose heat through radiation. For example, a hot kettle slowly cools down by giving heat to the surroundings. We can observe radiation in many daily life situations such as heat from the sun, feeling warmth near fire, hot objects cooling down. One very important point to remember is that radiation does not need any medium. Heat can travel through empty space. Radiation is a very important method of heat transfer because it allows heat from the sun to reach Earth across millions of kilometers of space. So remember, radiation is the transfer of heat without any medium, and it allows heat to travel through space. Now let us understand why we wear different colored clothes in summer and winter. The color of clothes affects how much heat they absorb or reflect. During summer, we usually prefer white or light-colored clothes. This is because light colors reflect most of the sunlight falling on them. Since less heat is absorbed, our body remains cooler and more comfortable. That is why white clothes are commonly worn during hot summer days. Now let us look at winter. During winter, dark-colored clothes are more useful. Dark colors absorb most of the sunlight and heat. Because they absorb more heat, they keep our body warmer. That is why people prefer wearing dark clothes during cold weather. So, light clothes reflect heat, while dark clothes absorb heat. This difference happens because of reflection and absorption of heat energy. Choosing the right clothes according to the season helps us stay comfortable. So remember, white or light clothes reflect heat and keep us cool in summer. Dark clothes absorb heat and keep us warm in winter. Now let us see how all three modes of heat transfer work together while heating water in a pan. When the pan is placed on the flame, conduction takes place first. Heat moves from the flame directly to the metal pan through contact. The metal pan becomes hot and transfers heat to the water inside it. Next, convection takes place in the water. The water near the bottom of the pan gets heated first. This hot water becomes lighter and rises upward. Cooler water from the top sinks downward to take its place. This continuous movement creates convection currents and helps heat spread throughout the water. At the same time, radiation is also taking place. The flame emits heat in all directions. That is why we can feel warmth around the stove even without touching it. So, all three modes of heat transfer work together here. Conduction heats the pan. Convection circulates the water. Radiation spreads warmth around the flame. Together, these three methods help heat the water efficiently and make cooking possible. This is a perfect example of how conduction, convection, and radiation work together in our daily life. Now let us understand the water cycle, which is a continuous movement of water in nature. Water on Earth keeps moving in a cycle and never stops. The sun provides the heat energy needed for this process. The first step is evaporation. The sun heats water in oceans, lakes, rivers, and ponds. Due to this heat, water changes into water vapor and rises into the air. This process is called evaporation. The second step is condensation. As the water vapor rises higher, it cools down in the atmosphere. The cooled water vapor changes into tiny water droplets and forms clouds. This process is called condensation. The third step is precipitation. When the water droplets in clouds become too heavy, they fall back to Earth. This falling water may come as rain, snow, sleet, hail. This process is called precipitation. The fourth step is collection. The rainwater collects in rivers, lakes, oceans, and ponds. Some water also enters the ground. After collection, the sun again heats the water, and the whole cycle repeats. This continuous movement of water is called the water cycle. The water cycle is very important because it keeps our earth fresh, clean, and full of life. So remember, the four main steps of the water cycle are: 1. Evaporation, 2. Condensation, 3. Precipitation, 4. Collection. Let us understand evaporation, transpiration, condensation, and precipitation in the water cycle. First, let us learn about evaporation. When the sun heats water in oceans, rivers, lakes, and ponds, the water changes into water vapor and rises into the air. This process is called evaporation. The heat from the sun provides the energy needed for water to change into vapor. Now let us understand transpiration. Plants also release water vapor into the air through their leaves. This process is called transpiration. Together, evaporation and transpiration add water vapor to the atmosphere. Next comes condensation. As the water vapor rises higher in the sky, it cools down. The cooled water vapor changes into tiny water droplets and forms clouds. This process is called condensation. Finally, let us understand precipitation. When the clouds become heavy with water droplets, the water falls back to earth. This falling water may come in different forms such as rain, snow, hail. This process is called precipitation. All these processes work together in the water cycle and help maintain the supply of water on Earth. So remember, evaporation changes water into water vapor. Transpiration releases water vapor from plants. Condensation forms clouds. Precipitation brings water back to Earth. Infiltration means the process by which water enters the soil and rocks. When water falls on the ground during rain, some of it flows away, while some water slowly moves down into the soil. Different types of soil allow water to pass through at different speeds. Look at the observation shown here. Gravel allows the fastest seepage of water. This is because gravel has large spaces between the particles, so water can move through easily. Sand allows moderate seepage. Its particles are smaller than gravel, so water passes through more slowly. Clay allows the slowest seepage. Clay particles are packed very closely together, leaving very little space for water to move. This shows that seepage of water depends on the type of soil or rock. Soils and rocks with larger spaces allow water to pass through faster, while tightly packed soils slow down the movement of water. Seepage of water is very important because it helps refill groundwater stored beneath the Earth's surface. So remember, gravel allows fastest seepage. Sand allows moderate seepage. Clay allows slowest seepage. Groundwater is the water stored below the Earth's surface. When rainwater seeps into the soil and rocks, it collects underground and forms groundwater. This underground water is very important because it provides water for drinking, farming, and daily use. The underground layer that stores water is called an aquifer. Aquifers are made of rocks, sand, or soil that can hold water in the spaces between particles. People use different sources to take out groundwater from aquifers. These sources include wells, hand pumps, bore wells. A well is a deep hole dug into the ground to collect groundwater. A hand pump pulls groundwater up using manual force. A bore well is a narrow deep hole drilled into the earth to reach underground water. Groundwater is a hidden but very valuable natural resource. Many people depend on groundwater for their daily needs, especially in places where rivers or lakes are not nearby. That is why we must use groundwater carefully and avoid wasting it. So remember, groundwater is water stored below Earth's surface. An aquifer is an underground layer that stores water. Wells, hand pumps, and bore wells are used to obtain groundwater. Groundwater depletion means the reduction of groundwater stored below the Earth's surface. On the left side, we can see healthy groundwater where water is available in sufficient amounts. But on the right side, the groundwater level has gone down and water has become scarce and difficult to reach. There are several reasons why groundwater is reducing. The first reason is excess use of groundwater. People use large amounts of groundwater for homes, farming, industries, and other activities. If groundwater is used faster than it is replaced, the underground water level starts decreasing. The second reason is concrete roads and buildings. Concrete surfaces do not allow rainwater to seep into the ground easily. As a result, less water reaches underground aquifers. The third reason is fewer trees. Trees help rainwater enter the soil and also maintain the water cycle. Cutting trees reduces groundwater recharge. Another important reason is reduced rainwater seepage. When rainwater cannot enter the soil properly, groundwater is not refilled. Groundwater is a very important natural resource, and we must conserve it carefully. We should avoid wasting water and use methods that help recharge groundwater. Now let us understand rainwater harvesting and how it helps save water. Rainwater harvesting is the process of collecting and storing rainwater for future use. During rainfall, water falls on rooftops and other surfaces. Instead of letting this water go to waste, it can be collected and stored. Let us understand the steps involved in rainwater harvesting. First is rainfall. Rainwater falls on the roof of the house. Second is collection. The rainwater flows through gutters and pipes connected to the roof. Third is filtration. The water passes through a filter to remove dust, leaves, and dirt. Fourth is storage. The clean water is stored in a tank for future use. Fifth is use. Stored rainwater can be used for gardening, cleaning, flushing, other household needs. The final step is recharge. Extra rainwater seeps into the ground and helps refill underground water sources. This process is called groundwater recharge. Rainwater harvesting is very important because it recharges groundwater, saves water, prevents water shortage. As groundwater levels are decreasing in many places, rainwater harvesting is an excellent way to conserve water and protect our future. So remember, rainwater harvesting helps collect, store, and save rainwater while also recharging groundwater. Now let us learn about the ice stupa in Ladakh, which is an innovative way to save water in cold desert regions. An ice stupa is an artificial cone-shaped ice structure. It is created to store water during winter so that it can be used in summer. In places like Ladakh, winters are extremely cold and water freezes easily. People use this natural cold weather to store water in the form of ice. Let us understand how an ice stupa is made. Water from streams is sprayed through pipes during winter. As the water comes out into the cold air, it freezes layer by layer. Slowly, the frozen layers build up into a tall cone-shaped ice structure called an ice stupa. The cone shape is very useful because it melts slowly compared to flat ice surfaces. During summer, the ice gradually melts and provides water for drinking, farming, daily needs. Ice stupas are very important in areas where water becomes scarce during warmer months. They help store winter water naturally and release it slowly when needed. There are many benefits of ice stupas. They provide water in summer. They support agriculture. They help conserve water. They are eco-friendly and sustainable. Ice stupas are a wonderful example of using science and nature together to solve real-life problems. So remember, an ice stupa is an artificial cone-shaped ice structure that stores water for summer use in cold regions like Ladakh. Now let's do a fun activity to understand how hot air moves upward. In this activity, we place a paper spiral above a burning candle. First, hang the paper spiral carefully above the candle using a thread. When the candle burns, it heats the air around it. As the air becomes hot, it expands, becomes lighter, and starts rising upward. The rising hot air pushes against the paper spiral. Because of this moving hot air, the spiral begins to rotate. This activity shows convection in air. In convection, hot air rises upward. Cool air comes down. This creates movement in the air. That moving air can even make objects like the paper spiral spin. So remember, hot air rises, and this movement of air is called convection. Thank you for learning with us today. We explored conduction, convection, radiation, water cycle, groundwater, rainwater harvesting, and many fun science activities. Science is all around us, and every question helps us learn something new. Keep learning, keep exploring, and stay curious about the world around you. If you enjoyed this lesson, thumbs up sign, like the video. Speech balloon, comment your favorite topic. Public address loudspeaker, share with your friends. Bell, subscribe for more exciting science videos. See you in the next science adventure.